I've been looking,
searching, trying to find the right way to walk. Stay beside me, guide me, try me. I wanna walk in your light.
I've been looking,
searching, trying to find the right way to walk.
The Lord is my light, my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. And whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even my enemy, my faith and trust I put all in thee. Believe you got the world in your hand. You bless me, Lord, I know I can stand.
Show me the way, Lord.
I will be faithful, for I am desolate and afflicted. Lord, show me the way.
And now we will have the reading of the law. Found in Exodus, the 20th chapter, verse 1 through 17. Okay, go ahead.
And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's.
Now let's go into Ecclesiastes, the 12th chapter. Read verses 12 and 13.
13 and 14.
13 and 14, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment, with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
We go into Revelation chapter 22. Read verses 14 and 15.
Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. For without are dogs, and sorcerers, and whoremongers, and murderers, and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie.
Thank God for the reading of the law. As always, it is good to stand before you on the Lord's Sabbath day. So this is our way of observing Black History Month, sisters and brothers. You know, I guess 20, 25 years ago, I say if we're going to celebrate black history, we're going to go and get black history. American history is not black history. This is slave history. And everything that that's called black history on these shores does not represent who we are, where we come from, and where we're going, sisters and brothers. I used to do this lesson in one setting, but the Lord showed me that we was leaving out. I had to throw too many things in the side drawer. So the Lord put it on my mind to do it in 5 parts. The 5 parts are color. Next week's going to be slavery. Next week's going to be, the week after that is spiritual death and resurrection, because we've totally forgot who we are. Then the next one is going to be the priest of God, to show the world that Israel, you and I are God's priests. And the one after that, sisters and brothers, is the adoption. Because God, and we go back to God's plan, and most people don't know what God's plan is. God's plan is to make beings just like him. But we did this in stages because we want to make sure. Now the reason we have now the first leg is color. Why color, Brother Boyd? Is because we have a people that's running around calling themselves Israelites. They only call themselves after one of the tribes, which is Judah, like Jews. So being that the whole world think that the people that call themselves Jews are what people call white, sisters and brothers, we had to show them through history and through the Bible. Another thing we learned, sisters and brothers, that this Holy Bible that you have is your history. And nobody can tell your history like you can. So we're going to start this. We're going to start it with the sons of Noah in Genesis, the 10th chapter, sisters and brothers. Because that's when we tell people, when you invite people to the Israel of God, tell them to bring pen, paper, and patience. And if you don't have a Bible, then we'll let you look at one, because we like you to read this, because I do not want people leaving here saying, Brother Boyd said. I want people leaving here saying, we read. So if there is any kind of issue about what we teach here, then you can take it up with the one that dictated this Bible. Because I didn't write one thing in here. And we're going to start in Genesis, the 10th chapter, with the sons of Noah, sister and brother. Because if you didn't come out of one of the sons of Noah, you don't exist. It's all that simple. I say, if the world could ever let that resonate in their mind, then there wouldn't be so much hatred and dislike in the world, because everybody here is sisters and brothers. All that simple. But when you don't go back and look at the origin, you think that, well, this person come from this direction and that person come. No, all of you, everybody in here, we don't have to go back to Adam. We can go back to Noah. So we're going to start this in Genesis, the 10th chapter, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. Genesis 10 and verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Go ahead.
And unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Madai, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshach, and Tyrus.
Now these are sons of Japheth, he's naming. Go ahead and read.
And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Riphath, and Togarmah. And the sons of Javan, Elishah, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles, divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, in their nation.
Now this is what you call learning something, when I call learning something on your way to learning something. You have been told all your life that if you're not a Jew, you're a Gentile. Biggest error ever made. The Gentiles are the sons of Japhet, sisters and brothers. Who are the sons of Japhet now? They call them European or white folks. That's a Gentile. You can't be a Gentile unless something happened way up your family tree. So these are Gentiles. I want you to know what we call Europeans or white people. Go ahead and read the next verse.
And the sons of Ham,
And
Cush,
the sons of Ham, Cush,
and Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan. And the sons of Cush, Seba, and Havilah, and Septah, and Reamah, and Septika. And the sons of Reamah, Sheba, and Dedan.
Now, Cush are the Ethiopian sisters and brothers. And all of these we name and come out of Cush. So when the Greeks saw the Cushites, they said, these people have burnt faces, a burnt skin. In other words, so that's what, until they name them, call them Ethiop, which means burnt face or burnt skin, sisters and brothers. In other words, we call them black. Go ahead and read.
And Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth.
Go ahead.
Skip to
And skip down to verse 10 and go ahead.
And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh.
Let me throw this in here. This is what a lot of people confuse. When they look at the Babylonian start with Nebuchadnezzar, they see white folks. But there was not the original Babylonian sisters and brothers.
Right.
The original Babylonians was Cushites, which came out of Nimrod, black folks. Okay, started back at the top. Go ahead and read.
And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar.
Go ahead.
Out of that land went forth Asher, and builded Nineveh, and the city Rehoboth, and Calah. And reasoned between Nineveh and Calah, the same is a great city.
Go ahead.
And Mizraim begot Ludim.
Now, Mizraim, second oldest son. Mizraim. When the Greeks saw them, they said, these people are black. You know what the Greek word for black? Egypt. Oh, that's simple. People don't even understand. You know, you see all these movies, see Egyptian white, they don't understand that Egypt, Mizraim, is on the African continent, sisters and brothers. We don't know that little bit of thing because we don't pay attention. We listen to what people tell us, but we never research. But go ahead and read.
And Mizraim begot Ludim, and Anamim, and Lehabim, and Naphtuhim.
Go ahead.
And Pathrusim, and Casluhim, out of whom came Philistine.
Now the Philistine, when you see the big Philistine, you look at that big guy they show you in David and the Philistine, a little white guy, a big white guy, just the opposite, a big black guy and a little white guy. A big white guy, a big black guy, rather, and a small black guy. Because Philistine came out of the lineage of Egypt.
That's right.
Go ahead and read. Where are we?
In the middle of 14. Out of whom came Philistine and Caphtorim. And Canaan begot Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth.
Now, Canaan is the one whose land the Lord took from him and gave to us, sisters and brothers. But go ahead and read.
Skip to verse 20.
Skip down to, what's that, 20?
Yes.
Go ahead.
These are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations.
Now, these are the sons of Ham, sisters and brothers. We're going to deal a little more with Ham later on because we have to use Ham because we have to have somebody that we identify with. I'm talking about color. So these are the children of Ham. What verse was that?
We just finished verse 20.
Go ahead.
Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth the elder, even to him were children born.
So now you got Shem. Now we come out of Shem. When you hear people say anti-Semitic, they think about the white guy, the Jewish guy. People have pretty well been anti-you, haven't they? So if they're anti-you, they're still anti-Semitic. But we let people identify to us what we are and what they are. But now, we're not going to read all of Shem. What we're going to let you know is that out of Shem came Abraham, Isaac, and our father Jacob, sisters and brothers. So we're going to pick this up with Jacob because you used to be a Jacobite until God adopted you, and that's when you became an Israelite. But we have all that's coming. We're going to teach all of that, sisters and brothers. That's why we have a 5-part series. So let's look at Jacob. We're going to pick him up in Genesis, the 37th chapter. Genesis 37. Because the only thing that we have to identify ourselves, sisters and brothers, is written documentation. That's why we have to research it. And the more you research, the more you're going to find out things about yourself that never cross your mind. And this is Jacob. He's the father of Israel. Because Jacob's name, his name, rather, was changed to Israel by God. So let you know, when you see Jacob or when you see Israel, you're talking about the same people. 37:1. Go ahead.
And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan.
Go ahead.
These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wife.
Go ahead.
And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report.
Now this is talking about Jacob, because Jacob was in the land of Canaan because the Lord threw him out and gave it to Israel. So now you had all of these guys, and Jacob and Joseph was second to the youngest son, and Joseph had a problem. He was a snitch. He always told on his brothers. What's the next verse? Go ahead.
Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors.
Go ahead.
And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him.
Now, so they didn't like him, sisters and brothers, because he told all the bad reports on him, plus the father made a difference and made him a coat of many colors. Mm-hmm. And that's something for you to learn from. Never show favor to any of your children, because if you do, the other siblings are going to hate them. That's what happened with Joseph. But skip down to verse 12 and go ahead.
And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to me, here am I.
So now, he's going to send Joseph out there to report on his brothers. So let's see what happened when Joseph left. Skip down to verse 18. Verse 18, and go ahead.
And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him.
That lets you know his brothers really hated him, didn't they? So they conspired against him to kill him. But the oldest brother delivered him. Skip down to verse 21. Verse 21, and go ahead.
And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their father's hands to deliver him to his father again.
So he persuaded them not to kill him. We're going to throw him in this pit. And and with no food and no water. So they thought they were just going to throw him in there and let him starve to death. But Reuben was waiting for his opportunity to sneak him back to the father. He's going to probably tell Jacob, don't ever send this boy out here again, or you won't see him again. But in the meantime, something happened, sisters and brothers. Skip down to verse 24. Verse 24, and go ahead.
And they took him and cast him into a pit. And the pit was empty, and there was no water in it.
They're just going to let him starve to death. Them some loving brothers, ain't it? Go ahead.
And they sat down to eat bread. And they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt.
Now, what's the Ishmaelite? That's what we call Arab today, sister and brother. Because you have to know who everybody is in order to find out who you are. So the Arabs coming along, and so these Arabs, apparently according to this, must came from the land of Midian, but they was Ishmaelites. Go ahead and read.
And Judah said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood?
Go ahead.
Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh, and his brethren were content.
Okay, so what good is it for us to kill our brother? We don't want our brother's blood on our hand, so let's sell him to the Arabs. Okay, so the brothers was content, and they pulled him up, and they sold him to the Arab. What verse was that?
We just finished 27, we're at 28.
Finish it.
Then there passed by Midianites merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt.
Now, for your information, You are the one that sold you first. Okay? I want you to understand that. And the first one that you were sold to was the Arabs, which are Ishmaelites. Then the Arabs took you down, and who did they sell you to? Skip down to verse 36. Verse 36. Let's see who sold you, who that the Arabs sold you to. Go ahead and read.
And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard.
So now, they went down and sold you to Egypt. That's how we ended up getting in Egypt in the first place, because you were sold to an Egyptian. So let's pursue this a little bit. Let's go to 39, Genesis chapter 39. Because we let the Bible walk us through, sisters and brothers, because we have been told so many things and given so many opinions until I don't trust nobody's opinion. I trust only what's written, sisters and brothers. And at the Israel of God, that's all we're going to show you, what is written, be it Bible or be it history. We're going to do a whole lot of history in this series. You'll be surprised. We're going to start Genesis chapter 39. We're going to start reading at verse 1. Genesis 39 and verse 1. Okay, read it.
And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither.
So now, Joseph was sold to the Egyptian, a captain, by the hand of the Arabs. Go ahead and read.
And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian.
Go ahead.
And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house, and all that he had he put into his hand.
So now Joseph went out there and excelled in this man's house because the Lord was with you. That lets you know if the Lord is with you, sisters and brothers, I don't care where you are, you're going to always excel. That's if you are a servant of the Lord. And we're going to show you that Joseph indeed is a servant of the Lord. Skip down to verse 7. Verse 7 and go ahead.
And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph. And she said, lie with me.
Okay. He done gave him everything else. Why not his wife? But what did Joseph do? Go ahead and read.
But he refused and said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wanted not what is with me in the house, and he had committed all that he had to my hand.
Go ahead.
There is none greater in this house than I. Neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee.
Go ahead.
Because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?
That is the difference in a servant of God. Joseph was 17 when he got sold, but he had been taught the law, sisters and brothers. Thou shalt not commit adultery.
That's right.
If you sleep with another man's wife, you have committed adultery. How can I do this evil against my master, and how can I do this evil against my God?
That's right.
I'm sinning against my God. And that's when you draw the line. That's what made the difference with Joseph. Go ahead and read.
And it came to pass, as she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or be with her.
That must have been torture. You understand? I ain't talking about because of his desire, but to have a woman trying to get you to break the law of your God, and also sin against a man that has been right by you.
Right.
Every day. Skip down to verse 12. Verse 12 and go ahead.
And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out.
Now, he ran. But the problem is, she had his garment in his hand, whatever he was wearing. And she used it against him. Skip down to verse 16. Verse 16 and go ahead.
And she laid up his garment by her until his Lord came home.
Go ahead.
And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, the Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came in unto me to mock me.
That's up now. Go ahead and read.
And it came to pass, as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled out.
Now he come in and mock me, so when I screamed, he ran and left his garment here. She's telling this to her husband. And what happened? Go ahead.
And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, after this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound.
He didn't take into consideration this boy didn't serve him faithfully. And his house had prospered because of him. They at least talked to him, but no, he got angry and put him in prison. Go ahead and read.
And he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison. And whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it.
So the Lord was still with Joseph. Even when you're false accused and you start to suffer for something that you didn't do, if you're a servant of God, he will deliver you. You got to understand that, sisters and brothers. He will deliver you. So he put him in prison. So what happened? He ended up being the trustee over the prison. But then something else happened. Let's go into Genesis, the 40th chapter. See, because we're gonna let the Lord tell this story. Right. Genesis chapter 40. And go ahead.
And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers.
Go ahead.
And he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard and to the prison, the place where Joseph was bound.
Now, all of a sudden now, you know, this came into play. Now, Pharaoh was mad at two of his officers, and he put them in prison. The prison that Joseph was the gang warden at. Go ahead and read.
Skip to verse 6.
What verse was we?
We just finished verse 3.
Skip down to verse 6. Go ahead.
And Joseph came in unto them in the morning and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad.
So he was responsible for these guys once they put him in there. He come in there, he saw them sitting around with a long face, sadness. So he asked them, go ahead and read.
And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his Lord's house, saying, wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, we have dreamed a dream, and there's no interpreter of it.
Go ahead.
And Joseph said unto them, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you.
Now, Joseph knew that God would let him know what was on their mind. So he said, interpretation belong to God. Don't you know that? Tell me, and I'll tell you what your dream is. Go ahead and read.
And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph and said to him, in my dream, behold, a vine was before me.
Go ahead.
And in the vine were 3 branches. And it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes.
Go ahead.
And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand.
So he told him what his dream was. Now Joseph go interpret it. Go ahead and read.
And Joseph said unto him, this is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand after the former manner when thou wast his butler.
They're looking 3 days. You're going to be restored to your position, and you're going to be serving Pharaoh wine again. Go ahead and read.
But think on me when it shall be well with thee.
But remember now, man, I'm telling you what's going to happen to you, so remember me when this go well for you. Go ahead and read.
And show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house.
Now, remember me, man. I'm the one. I'm telling you what's going to happen. So when this good fortune come upon you, when you're in front of Pharaoh because you pouring his wine, put in a word for me. God totally forgot. We're not going to deal with the other one. We just want to deal with what concerned Joseph. So now let's go into Genesis, the 41st chapter. Genesis chapter 41. Now this man was freed, and he went on about his business in 3 days like Joseph said. Now, 41:1. Go ahead and read.
And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years.
At the end of what?
2 full years.
2 full years. 2 years later. Go ahead and read.
That Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river.
Go ahead.
And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine, and fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow.
Go ahead.
And behold, 7 other kind came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kind upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kind did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kind, so Pharaoh awoke.
So now Pharaoh saw 7 real fine and robust cows, fat, healthy, come up from the river. Then here come 7 real lean and raunchy cows, starved to death, and they eat up the fat cows, but they don't get fat.
Right.
Go ahead and read.
Verse 5. And he slept and dreamed the second time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good.
So he went back to sleep, still dreaming. Now he come up with some punit, some real healthy corn.
That's right.
Go ahead and read.
And behold, 7 thin ears and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them.
Go ahead.
And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream.
So them 7 thin and raunchy pieces of corn ate up the robust corn, and it still was raunchy. So now Pharaoh woke up. Pharaoh wanted to know what this dream was. Go ahead and read.
And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled. And he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh.
And that's what happens now, sister and brother. Things go on in government. Somebody want to call the religious people in so they can learn what's going on. They don't never call us. Well, Brother Boy, you know, y'all just a little old bitty Bible class in Riverdale. You go on the internet. When you get through looking at Israel, the Israel of God, you're going to be Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Central and South America, Japan, Philippines, and all over. Well, Brother Boy, what happened? How'd y'all get that big? I don't know. Ask God.
Right.
I ain't playing none of it. I ain't leading the Israel of God. I'm just running, trying to keep up with it.
Right.
What verse are we?
In verse 9.
Go ahead and read.
Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day.
I do remember my fault this day. 2 years ago, a man told you that your dream let you know that you were going to be restored to your office and you're going to be back in the saddle again. And you forgot it? And the only reason he remembered here is probably because he was seeking favor for himself. I can tell him something that all these wise men can't tell him. So now I said, my faults are come before me this day. Go ahead and read.
Pharaoh was wroth with his servants and put me in ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker.
Go ahead.
And we dreamed a dream in one night, I and he. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream.
Go ahead.
And there was there with us a young man, an Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard, and we told him. And he interpreted to us our dreams.
Go ahead.
To each man according to his dream, he did interpret.
So he said, now you had a young Hebrew there. That's an Israelite, Hebrew Israelite. Why is Hebrew? Because Abraham was a Hebrew. Isaac was a Hebrew. Jacob was a Hebrew. But then when God changed his name to Israel, then that's where the term Hebrew Israelite came from. Okay? Go ahead and read.
And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored unto mine office.
Me restored to my office. Go ahead.
And him he hanged.
And he hung him. Because the other guy, once he told him about his dream, tell me mine, tell me mine. He told him, look, you're going to be hung and the bird's going to pick your eyes out. And that's exactly what happened to him. So him he hanged. Go ahead and read.
Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came in unto Pharaoh.
Well, you know, Hebrew Israelites don't shave. Why he shaved himself to go before Pharaoh? Because Egyptians don't like hair. So Joseph shaved himself. He went in before Pharaoh. What verse are we?
We're 15.
Go ahead.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee that thou canst interpret a dream, that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it.
Go ahead.
And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace.
That's why he told the guy in prison. God is the one that answers dreams, sisters and brothers. God is the one. So now, Pharaoh told him the dream about the lean cows and the fat cow, the robust corn and the puny corn, and then Joseph interpreted his dream. Skip down to verse 29. Verse 29, and let's look at this interpretation. Okay, go ahead.
Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt.
Oh, so that means that you're going to have a whole lot of bumper crops. I mean, everything's going to prosper in Egypt. Go ahead and read.
And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt.
And after that, you're going to get some bad years. Famine going to set in, and everybody's going to be in trouble. What verse?
We're in the middle of 30.
Go ahead and read.
And the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following.
Go ahead.
For it shall be very grievous.
And so this is going to be a very grievous thing. But go ahead and read.
And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass.
So he said, look, the Lord showed you this twice, Pharaoh. Don't fool around. God is going to do this. Go ahead and read.
Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt.
Go ahead.
Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years.
So he said, Pharaoh, I'm giving you advice. Appoint a man that's wise and discreet over this thing, and let him gather up all the extra corn during the good times and put them up for you, because you're going to need them. Go ahead and read.
And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities.
Go ahead.
And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine.
So now the Lord is giving you a message, Pharaoh. He is fixing you. So look, that you will prepare for the famine to come. That's why I said, put a man over this that's discreet and wise. Now, let's see what Pharaoh did. Skip down to verse 39. Verse 39 and go ahead.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art.
That's a wise decision that Pharaoh made, wasn't it? You the one that God is dealing with? Why would I put anybody over it but the man of God? I found out that God is dealing with you. I'm going to hang out with you. You can't get rid of me.
That's right.
Because I'm going to try to get some of your blessing until you notice me. So he said, who's more wiser than you? Go ahead and read.
Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled.
Boy, he gave him some big power, didn't he? Go ahead.
Only in the throne will I be greater than thou.
Go ahead.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt.
Sisters and brothers, nobody pays attention to this. You got all the land of Egypt, and Pharaoh set Joseph over the whole land. This is Joseph, the Hebrew Israelite.
Right.
Skip down to verse 45 and continue.
And Pharaoh called Joseph's name, Zaphnath-Paneah.
Every time we go to a foreign language, it's always going to get a name of their God. That's like whatever name you got right now, the name that you was given, that was the name of their God. So he changed his name, and what else did he do? Go ahead.
And he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt.
Go ahead.
And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt.
You notice the real important people, when God give them a mission, because this was a ministry here, that starts at 30. Jesus started at 30. David became king at 30. Joseph was appointed over all the land of Egypt at 30 years old. Because you fully seasoned, you should have your head in the right place. And he went out into all of the land of Egypt, Go ahead.
And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls.
I mean, bumper crops. Go ahead. I'm out the South, so I know what a bumper crop is. Go ahead and read.
And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. The food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up in the same.
Now what he did was, all the good years, he stored the food. Pharaoh would have never thought about that. So skip down to verse 23 now. 53 now, I'm sorry, verse 53 now, and continue.
And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended.
So now it came to an end. Go ahead.
And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread.
That dearth means famine, sisters and brothers. It was not only in Egypt, but that famine was all the land. I mean, God dropped it on the whole place. Go ahead and read.
And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, go unto Joseph. What he said to you, do.
Well, that's really something, isn't it? The Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, send you to Joseph, a guy that ended up being sold by his brother, imprisoned by a private master. And all of a sudden, he is the viceroy of Egypt. Go see Joseph. Go ahead and read.
And the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt.
Go ahead.
And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all lands.
So now, nobody saw Pharaoh. They only had to deal with Joseph, the Hebrew Israelite. And I'm going to tell you something. They found a corn in Egypt. And let's see whose insignia is on that corn and what they say. Put it up, brothers, on screen. Don't look too white to me, right? Read the inscriptions on it. What's it say?
Joseph. This is an image of Joseph that was found on a coin in the land of Egypt. According to the article, the back of the coin had images of wheat and corn named Joseph, viceroy of Egypt.
That just confirmed what we just read, didn't it? Viceroy. He was the second ruler. He called the shots, sisters and brothers. This is Joseph. Put it back up again. Let him melt it, kind of like savor it a little bit. This is one of your ancestors in charge of Egypt, sisters and brothers. That's what viceroy means. He was charged. He ran Egypt, sisters and brothers. Now let's go into Genesis, the 42nd chapter. See, because too many times we have been told things, and they get you a nice white picture up there, and all things, when you grew up, think that you want to be white, you want to be right, be white. Genesis 42:1. It's not throwing no stone at white, sister and brother. I'm just telling you what we was raised up. I'm a Southern boy. You understand? Timmy's daddy was Mr. Johnson. My daddy was Leonard. I never heard a Mr. on his name, a handle on it. But go ahead and read 42 and verse 1. Go ahead.
Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, why do ye look one upon another? And he said, behold, I have heard that there's corn in Egypt. Get you down thither, and buy it for us from thence, that we may live and not die.
So he tell his son, get on down and stop looking at one another. You hungry, you better get down in Egypt. We heard there's corn in Egypt. Go ahead and read.
And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brethren, for he said, lest peradventure mischief befall him.
Because he had lost one, he thought. Now they don't want to use the youngest son. They don't want to lose him. But go ahead and read.
And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came. for the famine was in the land of Canaan.
Go ahead.
And Joseph was the governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth.
Joseph had already had a dream, seeing that they're going to do that to him. But go ahead and read.
And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them, and he said unto them, Whence come ye? And they said, From the land of Canaan to buy food.
Now, if Joseph was rough on these guys, and they was the same color as the people that called themselves Jews, they'd be saying, why is this Israelite being rough on us? First thing is, why is this Israelite ruling Egypt? Right. But they thought it was the Egyptian. You know why? Because we're the same color as the children of Ham, sister and brother. This has gotten about around us. That's why I say you need to look at this whole series. You're going to find something you didn't know existed. Go ahead and read. What verse?
Verse 8. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew not him.
Go ahead.
And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them.
Go ahead.
And said unto them, Ye are spies, to see the nakedness of the land ye are come.
Boy, they didn't know that that was their brother. But he called them spies. You came to see that the land is in trouble, so y'all can come and attack us. Go ahead and read.
And they said unto him, Nay, my lord, but to buy food are thy servants come.
You calling your younger brother that you hated my Lord? And let you know they didn't know who he was. Didn't have a clue. Go ahead and read.
We are all one man's sons. We are true men.
Go ahead.
Thy servants are no spies. And he said unto them, Nay, but to see the nakedness of the land ye are come.
I mean, he put it through them. We're not going to go through all of it. So skip down to verse 21. Verse 21. And they're going to be talking now in Hebrew. They didn't know who Joseph was. Verse 21. Go ahead and read.
And they said one to another, We are verily guilty concerning our brother, and that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us.
So now we are paying because of what we did to our little brother.
That's right.
They didn't know that that was their little brother, that they was looking at him. Go ahead and read.
And Reuben answered them, saying, Spake I not unto you, saying, Do not sin against the child, and ye would not hear?
Because they wanted to kill him. Go ahead and read.
Therefore, behold, also his blood is required.
So they figure he's dead anyway. Go ahead and read.
And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by an interpreter.
Joseph played it out, didn't he? He had an Egyptian interpreter there. He speak to him in Egypt, and then they would speak to them in Hebrew. They didn't have a clue that he understood every word that they said. Even confessed they was wrong. Even found out who wanted to save him, which was Reuben. But later on, sisters and brothers, Joseph couldn't deal with it no longer, and he revealed himself. Let's go into Genesis, the 45th chapter, because we're going to walk this thing right on through, sisters and brothers, because this is your history. Why shouldn't you read your history sometime? Read it with a different outlook. Read it as not only the Word of God, but as your history. This is your history you're reading about. So when you think about black history, you can't start with the shores of America. Genesis 45:1. 45:1. Go ahead and read it.
Then Joseph could not refrain himself.
Now he listened to them doing all that talking in Hebrew about what they done did to him and all that kind of thing. He couldn't hold himself back anymore. Go ahead and read.
Before all them that stood by him. And he cried, caused every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren.
Go ahead.
And he wept aloud, that the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard.
Now Joseph started crying real loud, so they started heard. So the Egyptian heard him. Go ahead and read.
And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph. Doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence.
I guess I would have been too. You understand? I done sold this guy. We think he dead. And now you got this young guy here telling me, the one that's over all Egypt, how can this be Joseph?
Right.
Go ahead and read.
And Joseph said unto his brethren, Come near to me, I pray you. And they came near.
Go ahead.
He said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt.
Oh, now we know that's Joseph, all right, because we sold him into Egypt. Go ahead.
Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves, that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life.
See, sometimes God is working a thing, and we don't know it, sisters and brothers. Sometimes the worst day of your life could be the beginning of your life.
Right.
It's all that simple, sisters and brothers. Because you're looking at one that I went through that. Because of my misbehaving, I lost my wife. Then the Lord took away my health. Then I did something, I sinned against God. I said, I'm out of this. I ain't serving God no more. I left the Lord. I didn't leave my teacher, Brother Stern, because I loved the man like I would my own dad and my brother. But I called myself leaving the Lord. I didn't know, and that was the worst thing in my life. I was one miserable brother that lost my wife, that lost my health, and that lost my faith. And during my health, we had a woman that was handling my case, workman comp's case. And she always told me, well, just pray to the Lord. The Lord going to do this and the Lord going to do that. I got mad at the woman, and I opened up on this book and shut her down, and I thought she was going to leave me alone, but she didn't. She said, teach me more. I was in trouble then. And wouldn't let me off the hook. I thought, she said, baptize me. I said, I'll send you to Brother Stone. I don't, if you can't stay there, I don't want to go there. But what does Brother Stone? Well, you my teacher, you got to baptize. Then I called Brother Zara and I called Brother Daniel. We baptized the woman, and you know what that's the first thing they said? They had gone to. They said, Brother Bush, start a class. So I was a bachelor with a house. Hey, let's do the basement. But sisters and brothers, that was the worst day of my life when I left Brother Stern. But I didn't know that was the hand of the Lord doing what he's doing. Now I realize he brought me for a state in a city that I hate and still do. But I'm doing what I have to do. I wanted to get back to a nice, warm climate. You know, I was a country boy. But anyway, he said, look, the Lord sent me here to save life. So don't be angry at yourself, because this is the hand of the Lord. Skip down to verse 9. Verse 9 and go ahead.
Haste ye, and go up to my father, and say unto him, thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me, tarry not.
Now, and you have to know where your blessing come from. Joseph wasn't over all Egypt because of Joseph's wisdom and he was smarter than everybody. He was over all Egypt because God had made him. That's why I don't take no credit for this. It's God, sisters and brothers. Skip down to verse 28. And so they went and got his father. Verse 28. Go ahead and read.
And Israel said, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die.
So now, Israel packed his whole house up, and they went out into Egypt, and they gave him the land of Goshen. And he was down in Egypt until he died. Jacob died in Egypt, sisters and brothers. Now, but Jacob, before he died, had made Joseph promise him that he would not bury him in Egypt. He would take him back to the land of Canaan. And Joseph asked the house of Pharaoh, can he do this? Now, Joseph's still in charge. So let's go into the 50th chapter of Genesis. Genesis chapter 50. Because these things are going like that, sisters and brothers, because the Lord is pushing it. That's why we know the sign before Jesus come back, because we know him. And believe me, sisters and brothers, we're closer than you think. Genesis 50, And we're going to start at verse 5, because now Joseph had made him promise. Jacob had made him, Joseph promised, don't bury me in Egypt. I want you to bury in my land, which is Canaan, the land of Canaan. We're going to start at verse 5. And go ahead.
My father made me swear, saying, Lo, I die in my grave, which I have digged for me in the land of Canaan.
Go ahead.
There shalt thou bury me. Now therefore let me go up, I pray thee, and bury my father, and I will come again.
Go ahead.
And Pharaoh said, Go up and bury thy father, according as he made thee swear.
Go ahead.
And Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt.
So now Joseph was a big man. He was the viceroy, the ruler of Egypt. So he went up there with all the dignitaries, the big crowd of Egyptians, but then also his brothers and their children, except for the little children, went up. Go ahead and read.
And all the house of Joseph and his brethren and his father's house, only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen.
So go ahead.
And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company. And there came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond Jordan, and there they mourned with a great and very sore lamentation. And he made a mourning for his father 7 days.
So you had all the dignitaries of Egypt and Joseph's family. And the local guys was looking at this. A great mourning they made for Jacob for 7 days. Go ahead and read.
And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning in the floor of Atad, they said, This is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians.
So this is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians. You notice they didn't say it to the Egyptians in Hebrew?
Right.
They just said to the Egyptians. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and read.
Wherefore the name of it was called Abel Mizraim, which is beyond Jordan.
So they call it Abel Mizraim. That means the mourning of Egypt, sisters and brothers. They didn't see Hebrew. They saw Egyptian, sisters and brothers. Why? Because you look like the Egyptian. Why don't you put up on the board here, King Tutankhamun, the throne room, and King Tut's grandmother. Look at this, sisters and brothers. This is Tutankhamun. This is Tutankhamun and his queen in his throne room, and this is Queen Tai, Tutankhamun's grandmother. You can look at your grandmother, and she's going to look like that. Isn't that correct? These are Egyptian sisters and brothers. So they thought Israel was the Egyptian. Therefore, they said, Abel Mizraim, the mourning of the Egyptians. But you never know. Don't you know a lot of our people don't even know that Egypt is on the African continent? That's Ham sucking on his son, Mizraim. So let's go now and see what happened after Joseph died and all his brothers died. Let's go into Exodus, the first chapter. So all of a sudden we seeing that the people that call themselves Jews don't quite look like the people among whom they grew up into a nation, because it was just a handful of Israelites went down there, and we're going to show you that. Exodus 1, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. Exodus 1 and 1. Exodus 1 and 1. Okay, go ahead.
Now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob.
Go ahead.
Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already.
So now, 70 souls came out of the loins of Jacob. They didn't count the women. But when you look at it, 70 of them was 53 unmarried males, sisters and brothers. Didn't have no wives. 53 of them among the Egyptians. What verse are we?
Verse 6.
Go ahead.
And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation.
Go ahead.
And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them.
Where do you think all them guys got them wives from? So much today. I mean, they had babies everywhere. Can't nobody out baby us. Babies everywhere. Where did they get their wives from? From the Egyptian. The other brothers, the older brothers, got them from among the Canaanites. Right. We can show you that, which are also the children of Ham. So if there was any white in them, by all these generations, it would have been bred out of, wouldn't it? But go ahead and read. What verse?
Verse 8. Now there rose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph.
Go ahead.
And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land.
So now another pharaoh comes. So we talking about years ago. We talking about 400-something years. So they said, look, these people all over the land, and we get into a war with our enemies, they're going to jump up and fight against us and get away from us because we are good servants, sisters and brothers, believe me. So what they did was they just introduced chattel slavery. This is the first enslavement that we as a people had. Go ahead and read.
Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens.
Now, that is the first people that enslaved us as a people. Yes. Was the Egyptian. Look just like us, sisters and brothers. You ever heard that old saying, you my color, but you're not my kind? It fits this. Go ahead and read.
And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel.
That's one thing that the world don't know about us. The poor we are, and the harder time we have children. Because I guess our women is all we got. You done took everything else from them. But skip down to verse 15 and go ahead.
And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah.
The midwives, these are the women that deliver children. I know a midwife delivered me. I was delivered by a midwife, Kate Smith. Go ahead and read.
And he said, when ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women and seed them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live.
Now why say the women and not the boys? Because the man carried the seed. See, you are what your father is. You hear us all the time, I'm part Irish, I'm part Italian. I said, what is your father? It's Italian. I said, well, then you're 100% Italian. Israel built a nation out of somebody else. Otherwise, we would have been half Israel, Hebrew, and half Egyptian, or either half Hebrew and half Canaanite. But you are what your father is. So if you kill all the males and save the women, you will effectively wipe out the whole nation. But the midwives didn't do that. Go ahead and read.
But the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men, children alive.
So now, when the midwives didn't go with it, then Pharaoh gave commandments to all of his people. Skip down to verse 22. Verse 22 and go ahead.
And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive.
Boy, that must have brought him a big Nile crocodile must have had some good eating, didn't he? Because that's what's happening. Everybody, and you under trouble now. You're already in child slavery. Now you got people watching your house to see, you have a baby to see if it's a male or female. If it's a male, you're going to throw him in the river. If it's a female, then you're going to save a life. But in the meantime, Moses came along. Let's go into Exodus, the 2nd chapter. Exodus chapter 2, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. Exodus 2 and 1. Okay, read it.
And there went a man of the house of Levi and took to wife a daughter of Levi.
Go ahead.
And the woman conceived and bare a son, and when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months.
Now see, Joseph was a Levite, which was the priest tribe, sisters and brothers. But then in another lesson, we'll show you why he had to be. But go ahead and read.
And when she could not longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein.
Go ahead.
And she laid it in the flags by the river's brink.
Uh-huh.
And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him.
So she went and laid him in the weeds. That's what the flags are about, a little boat, so probably in a shallow part in the reed, because she couldn't hide him no more. So rather for them to come in her house and kill him, then she just put him away. So in the meantime, his daughter, his older sister Miriam, watched him and see what would happen to him. And let's see what happened. Go ahead.
And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river. And her maidens walked along by the river's side.
Uh-huh.
And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it.
Not just any woman, the daughter of Pharaoh, right. The one that's trying to kill all the males in Israel. So they saw the thing, saw the little old bitty boat that her mother's made, that Moses' mother's made. Go ahead.
And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept.
Uh-huh.
And she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children.
So she knew who he was, didn't she? Go ahead and read.
Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee?
The Lord had it working, didn't he?
Uh-huh.
So here come Miriam, his older sister, go ask Pharaoh's daughter, so shall I go and get a nurse for this child? What did Pharaoh's daughter do? Go ahead and read.
And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maid went and called the child's mother.
Uh-huh.
And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it.
Now, how is it that she couldn't do it herself, raise him herself, but she could raise him for Pharaoh's daughter? Mm-hmm. Because she was under protection of Pharaoh's daughter, and Pharaoh thought that was his grandson. I got a daughter. I got 3 grandchildren. And if my daughter had brought to me a son that looked like the people that call themselves Jews, and I would have told her, you said, this is my grand, you must have been smoking something. Some of you was in the old days, remember when we was back on 95th Street, when I had my 2 grandchildren, people used to complain, why has he got his grandchildren up there sitting on his knee? They was my grandchildren. I bet many days Moses sat on Pharaoh's knee because them grandchildren got a hold over the grandfathers. But how is it then that he didn't kill Moses? I told his daughter, what's wrong with you? You're going to bring this Hebrew baby up to me and say he's yours. Go ahead and read.
And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son.
Go ahead.
And she called his name Moses. And she said, because I drew him out of the water.
So Moses grew up as a son of Pharaoh.
Right.
In order for him to do that, he had to look like Pharaoh, didn't he? And she named him Moses because that means drawn from the water, sister and brother. She named Moses. Go ahead and read.
And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens. And he spied an Egyptian smiting an Hebrew,
Go ahead.
one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand.
Now, when you look at, you remember the movie they had out, the 10 Commandments? They found out that Moses didn't know he was a Hebrew until the old maid come and showed them that, see, this baby ain't no Egyptian. He's a Hebrew. No, Moses knew he was a Hebrew all the time because his mother raised him until he was weaned. So he knew who he was. So he went out there and saw an Egyptian beating up a Hebrew. Then he looked one way and looked the other. Didn't see nobody, so he killed the Egyptian and buried him. But he didn't know that the Israel had seen it. And when we see you, it's just like publishing it on the front page of every newspaper. Because he stopped the Hebrew from beating the Hebrew, but we're not going there. But when he killed his Egyptian, through the grapevine, I know it was Israel's grapevine, Pharaoh found out. Skip down to verse 23. Verse 23 and go ahead.
15?
Verse 15, I'm sorry, verse 15 and go ahead.
Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well.
Because Pharaoh found out that Moses indeed was a Hebrew. So he was going to slay him. I don't know what he did to Moses, his daughter, but Moses had ran. Go ahead and read.
Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock.
Go ahead.
And the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock.
Now, Midian, that's still the son of Abraham. Midian right now is owned by Saudi Arabia, sisters and brothers. That's where the wilderness is going to be. But then that's another lesson. So now, them girls would come down there and they draw water, then the shepherd would come up and run them away from the water and water their flock. But this time you had Moses there. And Moses rose up on them, sisters and brothers. And then he watered the women's flock. What verse?
18.
Go ahead.
And when they came to Reuel, their father, he said, how is it that ye are come so soon today?
Go ahead.
And they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds.
A Hebrew Israelite
An Egyptian.
Oh, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds. How could this guy that called himself be calling the Egyptian, being an Egyptian, look like me and you? What I'm saying is pay attention to what you're reading, sisters and brothers. An Egyptian delivered us. Go ahead and read.
And also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. And he said unto his daughters, and where is he?
Go ahead.
Why is it that ye have left the man?
Go ahead.
Call him that he may eat bread.
Go ahead.
And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter.
So now, Moses started dwelling in the land of Midian, sisters and brothers, which is western Saudi Arabia now. But now, they thought that Moses was an Egyptian. Now skip down to verse 23, and go ahead.
And it came to pass in the process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage. And they cried, and their cry came up unto God by reason of the bondage.
So now, because of that chattel slavery, Israel started to cry to God, and the cry came up to God, and so now he decided it was time for Moses to be sent back. Now let's go into Exodus, the 3rd chapter. Exodus chapter 3. And we're going to start reading at verse 1. Exodus 3 and 1. Okay, read it.
Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian.
Go ahead.
And he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb.
You know, it took me years to understand that the Mount Sinai, which is Horeb, was not on the Sinai Peninsula. It is in the land of Midian, just east of the Red Sea. The Red Sea got 2 fingers that goes up. You know, I'm talking about it goes up body water here, body water there, and in the middle is called the Sinai Peninsula. But no, I used to think that they went there, but no, Moses then went into the land of Midian, because that's where the Mount Horeb, which is Sinai, is. Go ahead and read.
And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush.
Go ahead.
And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed.
The Lord got his attention. Go ahead and read.
And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt.
Go ahead.
And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here am I.
Go ahead.
And he said, draw not now hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground.
So now, Moses didn't know that there was an angel in that bush. And the Lord called out to him through the angel, said, the ground is holy, take your shoes off. Go ahead.
Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.
Go ahead.
And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God.
Go ahead.
And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt.
Go ahead.
And have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows.
So now he said, I've heard my people Israel. So now I'm going to send you to get them. Skip down to verse 10. Verse 10 and go ahead.
Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt.
Now, he did it, but Moses didn't go easy. You got a lot of people right now want to be preachers. Moses didn't want to be no preacher. You understand? Like I didn't want to be no preacher. We went up to Israel of God. We was in the storefront. I used to teach real good and leave and go to Washington Park. That's where the fight was. Until Azariah and Danny told me, said, brother, look here, Israeli God can't prosper if the chief teacher is not here. Took me 3 years to decide I'm going to be a preacher. So now, let's look at this. Let's go into Exodus, the 4th chapter. Exodus chapter 4, and start at verse 1. Exodus 4 and 1. Okay, go ahead.
And Moses answered and said, but behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice. For they will say, the Lord hath not appeared unto thee.
Now he said, look, these people ain't going to believe me. The Lord ain't, man, get out of my face. The Lord ain't sent you nowhere. Go ahead and read.
And the Lord said unto him, what is that in thine hand? And he said, a rod.
Go ahead.
And he said, cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground. And it became a serpent.
Go ahead.
And Moses fled from before it.
Yeah, I guess that's the reaction, but go ahead and read.
And the Lord said unto Moses, put forth thine hand and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand.
So the snake became a rod in his hand. Again, but skip down to verse 6. Verse 6 and continue.
And the Lord said furthermore unto him, put now thine hand into thy bosom.
Put now your hand into your bosom. Go ahead and read.
And he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow.
You know what lepers mean? White. Now, if you, what we call white, now if you put your hand in there and bring it out, hey, it might be, I didn't get a good suntan, so my hand just kind of like bleached a little bit. But if I put my hand in my bosom and it come out white as snow, then you just got my attention. I don't come under no circumstances I can get blacker, right? But I can't get white. So when he looked at that hand, now he told him, put it back. What verse?
Verse 7. And he said, put thine hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as his other flesh.
He just turned black to blacks. Now skip down to verse 19. Verse 19 and go ahead.
And the Lord said unto Moses in Midian, go, return into Egypt, for all the men are dead which sought thy life.
Now, he told him, and we're going to show that the Lord said the exact words when Jesus was hid out in Egypt. Go back to Egypt. Everybody that seek your life is dead. Go ahead and read.
And Moses took his wife and his sons and set them upon an ass, and he returned to the land of Egypt, and Moses took the rod of God in his hand. And the Lord said unto Moses, when thou goest to return into Egypt, and see that thou do all these wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in thine hand, but I will harden his heart that he shall not let the people go.
See, when you get old God stuff, he's going to collect. Yep. He told Moses, now you tell him to let the people go, but I ain't going to let him let the people go. I'm going to harden his heart. In other scripture, in other lesson, we'll show you what the Lord said, because I want to lay my hand on Egypt. What verse?
Verse 22.
Go ahead.
And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, thus saith the Lord, Israel is my son, even my firstborn.
Now, what does it mean, my son, even my firstborn? Because the Lord adopted Israel. And during the millennium period, the 1,000 years that Jesus is going to rule this earth, sisters and brothers, he's going to adopt all the rest of the sons of Adam. And we will show you that in the last leg of this lesson. That's why I say Israel is my son, even my firstborn. Let you know that I'm recovering my children. Who are your children? The children of Adam. And Israel is the first of the recovery. Go ahead and read.
And I say unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn.
And that's exactly what Pharaoh, God did. He killed Pharaoh's son, his firstborn, and all the firstborn of Egypt. But that was 10 plagues later. So let's look at him killing the firstborns in all of Egypt. Let's go into Exodus, the 12th chapter. Exodus chapter 12. Remember now, you get all these Israelites, they have grown to a nation. And the women they had, that they made their nation of, was made out of the sons of Ham, sisters and brothers. It's all that simple. Exodus 12, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. Exodus 12 and verse 1. Because this is what the Passover was instituted, which we keep every year. In fact, we keep all of the feasts, sisters and brothers. Because the Lord said do it. 12:1. Go ahead and read.
And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months.
Go ahead.
It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house.
So this is the beginning of the month. This is the month Abib. That's why we keep our own calendar, sisters and brothers. We deal with God's month, not the Gregorian month, which was set up by Pope Gregory.
That's right.
God gave all his months. He put them down there. He said, so now I want everybody to get a lamb and put him up. When? What verse were we?
We're skipping to verse 5.
Skip down to verse 5 and go ahead.
Your lamb shall be without blemish.
It got to be without blemish.
A male of the first year.
Got to be the firstborn. Go ahead.
Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats.
So now, that's why when I get my Hebrew brothers, when they keep the Passover, they go down to the local supermarket and buy a lamb. I said, wait a minute. You can't do it like that, brother. What you got to do is you got to get you a female lamb. And then you got to get her firstborn. You got to examine him and make sure that he don't have a flaw. Then you put him up on the 10th day of the month Abib and don't kill him till the 14th day. I said, if you're going to do wrong, learn how to do wrong right. That's the way I see it. If I'm going to do wrong right. Go ahead and read what verse?
Verse 6. And you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month.
That's what the date had to be like that. Go ahead.
And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening.
Now, who is it that urged Pilate to kill Jesus?
Israel.
The whole nation, everybody in Judea. Kill him. And he tried to get out of it, especially when Jesus told Pilate, look, you wouldn't have no power at all. Don't you know I can pray now and get me 12 legions of angels? From that moment on, he was trying to let Israel Jews off the hook. But them Hebrews would not let him. He even indicated that they will appeal to Caesar.
That's right.
Then Pilate had to do it. And people say, well, the Romans killed Jesus. Yeah, at the urging of Israel. So you got to get, and let's look at this lamb. He got to be the firstborn. He got to be perfect. Go ahead and read.
And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the 2 side posts and on the upper door posts of the houses wherein they shall eat it.
Now, once you eat this lamb, you got to get this blood and put it on the door, on each side of the door and put it over your doorpost. Why are you going to do that? Let's skip down to verse 12 and find out. Pardon me? Verse 12. Go ahead.
For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night.
For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night.
And will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt.
Go ahead.
Both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord.
Go ahead.
And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are.
Now I'm going to come through Egypt, and I'm going to kill the firstborn of everything in Egypt. But the blood shall be a token upon your houses. Go ahead and read.
And when I see the blood, I will pass over you.
When I see the Israelite.
When I see the blood.
That means whoever's under the blood, he got passed over, don't he? No Egyptian went for it, but pay attention. The blood is a token. A token of what? A token of your faith, sisters and brothers. Faith didn't start with Matthews. Faith should have started in the Garden of Eden. To whom you believe in, that's who you going to obey. So when I see the blood, I'm going to pass over that house. Go ahead and read.
I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt.
He said, so when I see the blood, that's where the word come from, Passover. You want to get salvation now? You got to find out about the one that this lamb represented, which is Jesus. Jesus is the one that died for our sin. If you put yourself under the blood, when the Lord see your blood, it's going to be the same. When we see his blood, it's going to be the same as the blood of this lamb. He's going to pass over your sin because there ain't none that didn't sin. That's why Jesus is called the Holy One of Israel. People say, I ain't never sinned. I said, boy, you just sinned in by lying. What verse are we?
We're at 14.
Go ahead and read.
And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and you shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. You shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever.
Now, this is the Passover. Got people say, well, I'm going to keep communion, or I'm going to keep the last. The Lord commanded you to keep the Passover. And there's a date to do it. It's all that simple. So skip down now to verse 29 and go ahead.
And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt.
Go ahead.
From the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle.
Go ahead.
And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt.
Go ahead.
For there was not a house where there was not one dead.
That means that no Egypt believed that. I'm pretty sure they heard it. You know why I know? Because if we had read all these plagues, you see someone, Lord, so you tell them, I'm going to send hail and kill your cattle. Some of them Egyptians got their cattle out the field and took it in the house. Mm-hmm. Therefore, some of them knew, but they didn't believe it, sisters and brothers. Like right now, when we keep the Passover, look at us like we're doing something strange. What verse are we?
We're at 31.
Go ahead.
And he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, rise up and get you forth from among my people.
Go ahead.
Both ye and the children of Israel.
Go ahead.
And go, serve the Lord as ye have said.
Go ahead.
Also take your flocks and your herds as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also.
So Pharaoh was convinced. But go ahead and read.
And the Egyptians were urging upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we be all dead men.
Because the Lord had done a whole lot of damage to Egypt. In other lessons, we're going to show you that. And we're going to show you how he did it. He had done a whole lot of damage to Egypt. Now skip down to verse 37 and go ahead.
And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men beside children. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle.
Now, that's a mixed multitude. That means you had other people that was not Israelites went with Israel. Because they started to believe once they saw what God did to Israel, shoot, my God is Israel's God. Because this God delivers. What verse was that?
We just finished 38.
Now skip down to verse 40 and go ahead.
Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years.
430 years, sister and brother. You know, we teach in the early days of Israel, we taught that we're going to be in America for 400 years. But the Lord was talking about all Israel. Israel's captivity didn't start in America. We got a lesson to show you the difference. The first captivity started with the Assyrians when they took out the 9 tribes. That's 700 BC. So now, this was here in the land of Israel, in the land of Egypt. It came out after 400 years, sisters and brothers. And let me show you, and we're going to show you later on a little more about this. But let's go in the 105th chapter of Psalm, because we're going to show you whose land that Israel was dwelling in for them 430 years. Psalms 105. So a person asked one time, you know, Brother Boo, I went to a church and I didn't see nobody shout. I said, no, they was too busy learning. Because you keeping up with this stuff. Ain't got nothing wrong with shouting. You feel good, jump up, cartwheel, whatever. I have no problem with it. I want you to understand that. But in the meantime, learn a little something. I remember we was in the storefront, the first woman that shouted. No, and then I think it was something. I said something about Jesus. She screamed, ah, and took off. Everybody got all shook up. I didn't say nothing. Hey, the woman felt it. You don't know when the Spirit hit a person. You can't judge. You understand? So you leave it like it is. Okay. 105, we're going to start at verse 1. Psalm 105 and verse 1. Read it.
Oh, give thanks unto the Lord. Call upon his name. Make known his deeds among the people.
Now, when we should do that, skip down to verse 5 and read it.
Remember his marvelous works that he had done, his wonders and the judgments of his mouth.
So remember this. Skip down to verse 16 now, because we just confirming what we just got through dealing with, how the Lord operated with Israel in Egypt, which is the land of Ham, because Egypt is Ham's second oldest son. Verse 16, go ahead.
Moreover, he called for a famine upon the land. He brake the whole staff of bread.
We read that, didn't we? Go ahead and read. That's why Joseph got hired, because he told him that he was going to do that. Go ahead and read.
He sent a man before them, even Joseph, who was sold for a servant.
See, Joseph told his brothers, the Lord sent me to save lives. Go ahead and read.
Whose feet they hurt with fetters. He was laid in iron.
Go ahead.
Until the time that his word came, the word of the Lord tried him.
And the Lord tried him.
Yes.
And he didn't fail to try. Right. How did he do that when the Egyptian wife said, lay with me? I ain't committing adultery against God. Go ahead and read.
The king sent and loosed him, even the ruler of the people, and let him go free.
Go ahead.
He made him lord of his house and ruler of all his substance.
We read that and we showed proof, didn't we?
That's right.
By a coin that had Joseph's picture on it. Go ahead and read.
To bind his princes at his pleasure and teach his senators wisdom.
Wait a minute. You mean Joseph taught Egyptian citizens wisdom?
Yes.
Maybe you come from a more powerful people than you think.
Right.
Go ahead and read.
Israel also came into Egypt, and Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham.
So what did he do? He sojourned in the land of Ham, because that's what Egypt is. That's Ham's second oldest son. Go ahead and read.
And he increased his people greatly and made them stronger than their enemies. He turned their heart to hate his people.
Go ahead.
To deal subtly with his servants. He sent Moses, his servant, and Aaron, whom he had chosen.
Go ahead.
They showed his signs among them and wonders in the land of Ham.
So now Aaron and Moses went down there and they showed the signs of the Lord and wonders in the land of Ham. Because Egypt are Hamites.
Right.
Now let's look, put it on the board. Look, I want you to put on the board that we got from the Zanzibar Bible Dictionary who Ham's children are. Put it up there, brothers. And read it, Antoine.
Zondervan's Compact Bible Dictionary. Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites.
Well, if Ham is not your father, then where did you come from? You come out of Shem. Remember, Moses, the Shemite or Semitic, passed with Pharaoh's grandson, sisters and brothers, and we don't know all of these things. And the only reason Moses survived is because God sent Moses up in the Pharaoh's house as Pharaoh's grandson. And I'm sure that Moses was in his face all the time, and he didn't know that this guy was the son of one of the children that he was trying to exterminate.
That's right.
Why is it that Moses could exist as grandson of Pharaoh? One way, same color. And his daughter had compassion on him. She said, he's my son now. Didn't know the difference, sisters and brothers. Didn't know the difference. Now let's see what happened when Jesus was born. Let's go into Matthew, the 2nd chapter. See, most people don't pay no attention to this. But when God then put your eyes on, you see everything. You know, I'm one of them country boys. You should see them hogs eat that slop when you pour it in the car. I mean, they be eating it. That's where you eat this like slop. I mean, you suck up everything. Matthew chapter 2, and we're going to start at Matthew chapter 2 and 1, and verse 1. Matthew chapter 2, and we're going to start at verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem.
And I'm going to show you, there came 3 wise men.
Wise men.
And what happened to 3? I've been told 3 all my life. Anyway, keep reading.
Saying, where's he that is born king of the Jews?
Where's my personal Savior, my God and light?
Born king of the Jews.
Maybe they was wiser than we thought, huh? Go ahead and read.
For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him.
Go ahead.
When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him.
Well, if you knew about Herod, you're going to find out about him before you get out of this series. Herod was a maniac. He didn't kill Jesus because for no religious reason, for a political thing. Because he thought everybody that had designs on his throne that the Romans had made him king over Jerusalem, he killed him. That was the reason he wanted to kill Jesus. But skip now to verse 7, because he told him that he wanted to worship. Did you finish verse 3?
Yes.
Verse 7, go ahead.
Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared.
Go ahead.
And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search diligently for the young child.
Go ahead.
And when ye have found him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also.
Now, he wanted to kill him. He wasn't concerned about worshiping Jesus. Go ahead and read. But skip now, brother, to verse 12. Verse 12 and go ahead.
And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way.
Go ahead.
And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt.
Go ahead.
And be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him.
So now, Joseph and Mary took Jesus down into Egypt. And he said, I want you to be there until I call you. Go ahead and read.
When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt.
Go ahead.
And was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, out of Egypt have I called my son.
Now, prophet spoke about that. So now, he sent Moses in the house of Israel, Egypt, of Pharaoh, rather, to save him. Now, he done sent Jesus down into the country of Pharaoh. To do what? To hide him. I'm going to show you why it's to hide him. We're going to read a little history here. Let's go into great people of the Bible. And we're going to read on page 301. Go ahead and read it.
Palestine in the time of Jesus. When Jesus was born in 6 BC, Palestine had been under Roman control for more than half a century. In 63 BC, Pompey put the area under the control of the new Roman province of Syria. And in 40 BC, Rome designated Herod king of Judea.
Now, Herod was appointed by Rome of king of Judea. Go ahead.
Which meant nearly the whole of Palestine, Herod reigned until his death in 4 BC.
Now, if Herod had known that Jesus was in Egypt, he would have sent and got him, because he was a Roman vessel, so was Egypt controlled by the Romans. But the Lord didn't send Jesus down into Egypt to be protected by the Egyptians. He sent him down there to hide among the Egyptians. So when Mary and Joseph took Jesus down to Egypt, it was just another black family among black families. Let me show you what I'm saying. If he had been white, put me some on the board here. You're talking about a soul farm. Herod would appeal to Caesar, and never got Jesus down there before he could get settled. So in order for him to hide, he had to look like the Egyptian, didn't he? Just like Moses looked like the Egyptian. I don't look at the people nowadays. Send one of them down there, they call themselves Jews, among the Egyptians, see what's going to happen. Sisters and brothers, he just sent them down there because they was hid, because they were just another black family among black families. So he couldn't find him. And let's look, I'm going to show you a famous apostle, which is Paul. Let me show you something about Paul that nobody ever talk about. Let's go into Acts, the 21st chapter. Acts chapter 21. That's why it's called color, sisters and brothers, because if we didn't have a people running around there saying that they was us, then we wouldn't have to deal with it. But Brother Boo, what you going to happen when they find out that you teaching this? They already showed me years ago when my baby, my daughter, which I ain't going to tell you how old she is because she killed me, when she was little, on Black History Month when I was doing it, he done came and broke my picture window out. He gave me a message. Me and the brothers run over from the church, and we got over there, we saw this log, and my picture window laying on my couch, and my wife and baby scared to death. They did it. Then sent some people over there and beat up the custodian, tried to break in the church. And the only reason they stopped because the neighborhood people started gathering around and looking at them. Then they jumps up and they run. The ones with the braids is hanging down, like the people, you know, beat the brother up. And instead of me being intimidated, I got hacked off. And I got worse on them. You understand? The people that call themselves us. I just showed you the color, what they look like. Now let's go into Acts, 21st chapter. And we're going to look at Apostle Paul's sisters and brothers. See, sometime if you're going to deal with the truth, you got to have a little nerve. You understand? And you got to fear only one person, and that's God. Because if you don't fear, that's it. I done had it come. They come over in the parking lot. That's Bush van over there. Yeah, we got his van. We're gonna take care of him. Brother come all into me, all shook up. What you scared about? They didn't threaten you, they threatened me. Scared man can't do nothing. They said that to Ezra. You better go hide, because they're going to come. He said, one like me don't hide. You do what you got to do. Acts 21. Let's start at verse 37. Acts 21 and 37. Okay, go ahead. This is the Apostle Paul. The Jews was trying to kill him, and the Romans had recovered him out of the Jews' hand. And they had Paul in chains, you understand? And Paul wanted to speak to the captain. Verse 37, go ahead and read.
And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, May I speak unto thee? Who said, Canst thou speak Greek?
He said, Can you speak Greek? Go ahead.
Art not thou that Egyptian, which before these days madest an uproar and leddest out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers?
Are you not that Egyptian that rebelled with 4,000 men that were murderers? Finish that.
But Paul said, I'm a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city of Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city.
Why did that Greek captain think Paul was an Egyptian? because Paul was black. The same color as the sons of Ham. But you see Paul, the little white guy with a little flame of fire on the top of his head, right? Let's just let you know, sisters and brothers. But you know, we showing the Egyptian, Egypt, showing that Israel looked like Egypt, sisters and brothers. We got 90%, 98% of our wives from among the Egyptians. And the rest of them we got from Canaan. We, Israel, when you want to see what the color Israel is, look in the mirror. But God didn't liken us to the Egyptians. He likened us to Ham's oldest son, Cush, which are called Ethiopians. Why did he do that? Let's go and have us a look. Let's go into Amos, the 9th chapter. Who did God liken us to? Amos chapter 9. Because every time I hear that word black history, and you talking about who is the guy that made oil out of the peanut? Who?
George Washington Carver.
George Washington Carver. You're good for making oil out of peanuts. And you got all this great history behind you. And you're going to tell me this is my history? I ain't going for it. You reading your history right now. And it's just the color first, because we can't get off in the history part until we make sure you know who Israel is, the people that call themselves Jews are not. Amos 9, and we're going to read one verse. Amos 9, and we're going to read verse 7. Amos 9 and verse 7. Okay, read it.
Are ye not as children of the Ethiopians unto me?
Uh-huh.
O children of Israel?
Go ahead.
Saith the Lord.
Uh-huh.
Have not I brought up Israel out of the land of Egypt, and the Philistines from Caphtor, and the Syrians from Ker?
Now, did the Lord bring Israel out of Egypt? Therefore, that's the way the Lord talks sometimes. That means that we are like the children of Ethiopia. Why would God liken us to Egypt, the Egyptian that we've been reading about all afternoon? Well, I'm going to show you why. Let's go into a history book called The Last 2 Million Years, page 381, and read paragraph 1 and 2. This is world history, 2 million years. Page 381. Read it.
Islamic
put it on the
rule.
board. Go ahead.
Islamic rule from 639 to 1798. During the rise of the great Islamic Arab Empire, Egypt was speedily conquered by the Arabs between AD 639 and 642.
Oh, so the Arabs went in there, conquered Egypt, just like they conquered the land of Midian, and they own it now. But keep reading.
Since the 7th century, Egypt has been an Arab country, a main center of Islamic life and religion.
Since the 7th century, the Arabs, the children of Ishmael, the Ishmaelites have owned Egypt, not Egypt. So the kings of Egypt don't look like the original kings of Egypt. I got 3 kings here. I got King Tutankhamun, and I got an Ethiopian, and I got a king of the Arabs. Put their pictures up. Let's look at them. Tutankhamun, King Tut. What is he?
Black.
Prime Minister over here of Ethiopia. What is he?
Black.
Well, Prime Minister of Egypt now. What does he look like? Don't look black, do he? He looks like the guy that be selling you that bad meat on the corner grocery store. Big difference, ain't it? So now, he likened you to the Ethiopian sisters and brothers, because they know white or any other color that called themselves Ethiopians, but black folks. So God saw it all, sisters and brothers, and he prepared us for it. So we got the king, Tutankhamun, got the prime minister of Egypt now, and we got one of the prime ministers of Ethiopia, and they're all black, sisters and brothers. They're all black. But when we got most of our black ministers want to show black in the Bible, they all go to this one place. Let's go to this one place and look at it. Let's go into Acts, the 13th chapter. Acts chapter 13. People get mad at me. Well, you know, brother, you racist. I said, look, how you going to call me racist? An Italian say I'm an Italian. A German say I'm a German. A Russian say I'm a Russian. And you said, so what? Then I say I'm a Hebrew Israelite. You racist. Something don't fit there. That's why everybody done told his story. Now it's time for us to tell our story. That's what history is. Well, ain't nobody gonna tell you. And after this, I'm gonna show you a clip that everybody know who you are but you. Acts 13 and verse 1. Acts 13 and 1. If people come in, some people come and go, let's shake their head. Boy, I don't know. You don't know what. It is what it is. If God didn't want me to tell this story, then he wouldn't have given it to me. 13, and we're going to read one verse. Verse 1. This is where all of them go to get black. Go ahead and read. I'm talking about the black ministers. Go ahead.
Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger.
Go ahead.
And Lucius of Cyrene and Manaen, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch and Saul.
Now look, all these guys were together, but they pointed out, see, you got a prophet there called Niger. He was black. Sisters and brothers, all of God's prophets are black. He was just blacker than the rest of them. We had a guy that we used to call black, and he was black. And we had one we used to call blue, and he was black. And we're going to show you that all of God's prophets was black, and the Israelites. Let's go into Amos, the 3rd chapter, because the Lord only dealt with one people. And it still is, and we ain't doing our job. That's why the world is messed up now with bad teaching. Let's go to Amos, the 3rd chapter, and look what the Lord said here. But don't nobody want to get up. Ministers want to get up and say, I'm black. Israel is black. Jesus was black. Oh, see, brother, you can't say so. Why not? God tell me, well, you know, Jesus ain't got no color. Then why you got that picture on your wall that's white? But the thing about it, sisters and brothers, we just teach a new book. Everything we said, we read it, haven't we?
Right.
That's it in a nutshell. We're going to read it to you. Now, whether you take it, that's on you. That's why I tell people, the Lord didn't send me to judge nobody. Only thing he sent me to do is preach what he got written in this word. What you do with it is your business. If you don't want it, you reject it. I'm not going to condemn you. I'm not going to be walking around and looking at you funny. I ain't going to say nothing. How you doing, brother? How you doing, sister? See you. Because the Lord told the watchman his job was to warn the people from him. That's the only thing I have to do. If I warn you and you don't take heed, that is on you. Amos chapter 3. And we're going to start reading at verse 1. Three and 1. Okay, read it.
Hear this word that the Lord hath spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which are brought up from the land of Egypt.
Go ahead.
Saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth.
Well, now this is God talking to Israel now. Now you going to tell me that God don't know what he's talking about? Go ahead and read.
Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities.
Why do you think that we can't get away with nothing?
Right.
What do you think them immigrants done stumped the mud hole in them cops in New York? You think we'd have got away with that? Other people go out and do something mischievous, and they slap a little misdemeanor on it. You go out and they slap a felony on your son. Now he can't even work now. He can't make a living, so he is jail bait from that day on. He said, look, I'm going to punish you for all of your iniquities. Why? That's why I say people all the time, can't nobody backslide but Israel. Because you cannot backslide from something you never had. But in the lesson, the priest of God, you really going to get your ears put on, sisters and brothers. Now let's back up to Amos 2, because he said, you only have I known. Let you know why that I know that Niger was an Israelite, and with everybody else, all of them was Israelites. Every one of them, and all the prophets was Israelites. 2, and we're going to start reading at verse 6. Amos 2 and 6. Okay, read it.
Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Israel and for 4. I will not turn away the punishment thereof.
Go ahead.
Because they sold the righteous for silver and the poor for a pair of shoes.
Now, we did that, sisters and brothers. But look what the Lord said I did for you. Skip down to verse 9 and go ahead.
Yet destroyed I the Amorite before them, whose height was like the height of the cedars.
Go ahead.
And he was strong as the oaks.
Go ahead.
And I destroyed his fruit from above and his roots from beneath.
So I destroyed the Amorite from it. That's when I brought you up out of Egypt. Go ahead and read.
Also I brought you up from the land of Egypt and led you 40 years through the wilderness to possess the land of the Amorite.
Go ahead.
And I raised up of your sons for prophets and of your young men for Nazarites. Is it not even thus, O ye children of Israel?
He didn't say I raise up your son among the prophets. He gave an absolute here. I raised up your son for prophet and your son for Nazarite. Is it not true, O Israel? All of the prophets was Israelites. All the apostles was Israelites. Every one of them, sisters and brothers, down to the last man. And in the early days, sisters and brothers, Israel wouldn't even teach other people when it first started out, when we first began to be Christians. Let's go into Acts the 11th chapter. So Niger, sisters and brothers, was an Israelite. If he had not been an Israelite and just one black man among white Jews, they wouldn't have spoke to him. Because Israelites at that time did not associate themselves with nobody but Israel. Like nobody. Let me show you what I'm saying. Acts chapter 11. Because after Stephen was stoned to death, all the disciples and the apostles scattered all over creation teaching. And let's see who they taught. 11 and verse 19. Acts 11, and we're going to start reading at verse 19. Okay, read it.
Now they which were scattered abroad upon the persecution that rose about Stephen traveled as far as Phoenicia and Cyprus in Antioch, preaching the word to none but unto the Jews only.
Wait a minute. Read that again.
Preaching the word to none but unto the Jews only.
And we're going to show you why. But keep reading.
And some of them were men of Cyprus and Cyrene, which when they were come to Antioch, spake unto the Grecians, preaching the Lord Jesus.
The Grecian what? The Grecian Israelite.
Right.
Brother showed me, see there? He said he speak the Greek. I said, look, what are you, man? I'm an Israel. I'm an American. Oh, is that right? What's your origin? Well, you know, I'm an Israelite. Bingo. Those was the Greek Israelites. He already told you he's speaking but none to the Jews, but the Jews only. They wouldn't speak to nobody else. And we're going to show you why. It's going to shock you. But skip down to verse 22 and go ahead.
Then tidings of these things came unto the ears of the church, which was in Jerusalem. And they sent forth Barnabas that he should go as far as Antioch.
Now, when Peter and the elders of the church heard, because the church was old now, that they sent forth Barnabas, and he went and got Paul. See, Paul had not been dispatched as the apostle of the Gentiles yet. He was still hanging out with the Hebrews. Paul didn't want to go. God had to force him. But then that's another lesson. People don't know that. Because no Israelites wanted to teach nobody but the Israelites. So now, he sent them, they heard, and so they sent Barnabas that he should go to Antioch. But let's see what Barnabas did first. Because everybody was scared of Paul but Barnabas. Skip down to verse 25, because Paul used to persecute the church. Verse 25, and go ahead.
Then departed Barnabas to Tarsus for to seek Saul. And when he had found him, he brought him unto Antioch.
Go ahead.
And it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the church.
Go ahead.
And taught much people. And the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch.
Wait a minute. Did we read that right?
Yes.
You sure you read that right?
Yes.
You know what this telling me? That when the church, the disciples and the apostles was first called Christian, there was not one non-Israelite in the church. Not one. And you're going to tell me that how can you being a Jew be a Christian? I said, I am the original Christian. That's why I know what they got out here that's called Christianity is not Christianity. I'm a shoemaker. I make nice leather shoes, and you're going to come up with me with a bunch of sneakers and say, this is a leather shoe. Man, I make shoes. How you going to put a sneaker on the table and say, this is a nice crafted leather shoe? Same thing with Christian sisters and brothers. There was not one non-Israelite in the church. Not one, sisters and brothers. So when we were first called Christians, don't you know most people don't understand that the apostles was Israelites? Most people don't understand that when God got around to sending an apostle to the Gentiles, he picked Paul, an Israelite, you know, the one that the Greeks thought was an Egyptian. So therefore, how could this Niger be anything else among them but an Israelite? Because they wasn't dealing with Israelites. That's when in Acts the 10th chapter, when Peter went into Cornelius' them, he told them, so don't you know it is an unlawful thing for one that is a Jew to come in to anybody of another nation? Let's show you that. Let's go to Matthew the 10th chapter. Show you why that he told them that, sisters and brothers. This is why Paul told them. This is why the Israelites was not teaching to nobody but Israel. And let's see who commanded them to do that. Matthew chapter 10, and we're going to start at verse 1, then we're going to skip. Matthew 10 and 1. Then we're going to skip. Because people don't pay no attention to the Word of God. They like to fabricate. We just read. No, see, no. It can't be like that, brother boy. I said, well, then, you're talking to the wrong one. Verse 1 first. 10 and 1. Read it.
And when he had called unto him his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease.
See, the Lord, when he sends you to do something, he give you all the power you need to take care of the business, sisters and brothers. But look what he commanded them. Skip down to verse 5. Go ahead.
These 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, go not in the way of the Gentiles.
Wait a minute. Go not in the way of the Gentiles. Who are Gentiles? The children of Japhet.
That's right.
White folks. Go ahead and read.
And into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not.
Now that covers a lot of the Hamites. Right. Because when the Syrians took out the 10 tribes, they brought in a lot of black folks in there. And the people in Samaria actually thought that they was Israelites, but the apostle wouldn't even deal with them. That's why when Jesus asked this woman in Samaria for some water at the well, she said, how is it that you asking me, you being a Jew asking me, a Samaritan woman, for water, being that you Jews don't have no dealing with Samaritans? Because even though we were the same color, we know they wasn't Israelites. So Jesus said, go not in the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of Samaritans enter you not, but do what?
But go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel.
And Peter them passed that message on. They passed it on, sisters and brothers. The Jews wouldn't teach nobody but the Israelites. That's when the Lord finally decided to bring the first Gentile into the church, the first stranger, period, which is Cornelius, into the church. He had to prepare Peter for it by letting down a sheep with four-footed beasts. So Peter killed, slayed, ate, and people think that's when the Lord said you can eat anything, you don't have to keep the Mount dietary law. No, that wasn't it. He was preparing Peter to bring in people outside of Israel. That's why when he got before them, he said, don't y'all know it's an unlawful thing for one that's a Jew to come in to anyone of another nation, but God has shown me not to call any man common or unclean. So the reason they wouldn't teach nobody is because, but Israelite, is because Jesus told them. Is Jesus prejudiced? No. His people had fallen off the wagon. You got a people that you chose to be priests, and they have lost their understanding and don't have no knowledge. You got to teach them first before you send them somewhere else. So that's what he did. And we're going to show you that even in other scriptures even more. But now let's go and show you this. They would not talk to anybody because the Lord got them ready. And when he got them ready, then he sent them. But in the meantime, we're going to look at this guy Philip. He done broke the commandment. Let's go into Acts the 8th chapter. Acts the 8th chapter. Look like somebody always want to do contrary. And this is the angel that made him break the commandment. Acts 8, and we're going to start reading at verse 26. Acts 8 and verse 26. We just got one more scripture, a couple more scriptures after this, and I'm going to let you out of here before you get old and pass out on the seat. I always like to do that to give you hope that you'll get out of here. Verse 26, 8 and 26. Okay, read it.
And the angel of the Lord spake unto Philip, saying, Arise, and go toward the south unto the way that goeth down from Jerusalem unto Gaza, which is desert. And he arose and went, and behold, a man of Ethiopia, an eunuch of great authority under Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, who had the charge of all her treasure, and had come to Jerusalem for to worship.
So now, the angel told him to go down there and intercept this guy. He was an Ethiopian of great authority. And what happened? Go ahead.
Was returning and sitting in his chariot, read Isaiah the prophet.
So he had been to Jerusalem worshiping. He was coming back. He was reading Isaiah the prophet. Go ahead and read.
Then the Spirit said unto Philip, Go near and join thyself to this chariot.
Wait a minute. Didn't an angel send him down there? How is it all of a sudden this Spirit then jumped in the way and said, go near? Because God said, I make my angels spirits. Angels are spirits, sister and brother. All the ones that didn't follow Satan are Holy Spirits. So go ahead and read.
And Philip ran thither to him and heard him read the prophet Isaiah and said, Understandest thou what thou readest? And he said, How can I, except some man should guide me? And he desired Philip that he would come up and sit with him.
That's some good advice, but you should think about that. How can you let somebody guide you through this book until you, just like a child, when you get to the point where you can stand up, then you can walk yourself. But why was this Ethiopian coming from Jerusalem to worship, and why did the angel send Philip to teach him, being that Jesus said, go not in the way of the Gentile? are Samaritans. No sin in Samaritans. Why was that Ethiopian there? Let's go and find out. Let's go into Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter. Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter. And we're going to read one verse. Deuteronomy 16, and we're going to read one verse. And that is verse 16. Okay, read it.
3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God.
He's talking to Israel now. 3 times a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God. Go ahead.
In the place which he shall choose. In the feast of unleavened bread.
And the feast of unleavened bread that come directly after Passover. Go ahead and read.
And in the feast of weeks.
The feast of weeks, which is called Pentecost. Go ahead.
And in the feast of tabernacles.
That's the feast of ingathering. Go ahead.
And they shall not appear before the Lord empty.
So it was a commandment that all Israelites, no matter where you are, where you scatter, you had to go back and keep these 3 feasts. So this Ethiopian was an Israelite going back to keep the feast. I want you to put up the picture of this Ethiopian. And what's it say here?
Historians see phylloches as possible descendants from Israel's tribe of Dan. What? You a phylloche?
Wait a minute. They're from what? The tribe of Dan?
Yes.
That's who the phylloche you see. Go ahead and read.
What? You a phylloche? You are laughing at us? Are there any white phylloches?
This is what the Danites said. Israelites. They start, are you laughing at us? Is there any white phylloches? Go ahead.
That was the way the people of Beta Israel greeted French Semitic scholar Joseph Halevi upon his arrival in Ethiopia in the last century. Jews are black, not white, they said. They said the same to Halevi's student Jacques, who became founder of the American Pro-Phylloche Committee.
See, that's what the Danites told him when the Edomites went over there talking about Jews. Because the Ethiopian was trying to exterminate them like flies. We're going to show you that in next week's lesson, sister and brother. You understand? Because you're going to find out it ain't got nothing to do with color. It's got something to do with the curse. People look like you and tried to exterminate you. Well, we saw a little of that in Egypt, didn't we? So now, this guy from Ethiopia was a Danite. That's who Philip intercepted down there. And they end up baptizing. So let's throw a couple more pictures up there. Let's show the Gadites in Nigeria. Nigerians, read that.
The Nigerian Jewish claim was bolstered several years ago with the discovery in the area of an onyx stone reportedly bearing the name Gad in ancient Hebrew.
So they had who they were. Read what's under the picture now.
Wandering Jew. With traditions that echo Jewish ritual, these Nigerians seek official recognition as Jew. We want a rabbi to come here and elevate a Torah, said Haram Chevron Levy, second from right.
Now, but we find out that they didn't want to do no conversion because they told them, so look, how can we convert to what we already are? These are the Danites in Nigeria. In fact, we just baptized one of them. I think we're going to show that later on. Okay? So now, we see the Danites, we see the Gadites in Nigeria, and we're going to show you about the rest of them. All these was getting exterminated by the Africans, the Hamites. They come up next week. You're going to be surprised what we're going to see. And the next time you're going to say, my African brother, you're going to say, you ain't going to be able to get it out your mouth. That's what knowledge do for you. Now, I told you earlier that everybody knew who we were, know who we are, but us. Let me show you what a white preacher did. Put that up there. I want you to listen to this guy with your own ears concerning us. Put it up and play it. Turn it up loud.
Let me say something right quick. I think back on the African American people in America. I think how that they were taken against their wills, put in the belly of ships, brought over here, beat, cussed. Many of them died in the guts of those ships, thrown overboard. They were pulled from families over there. You ain't never heard a gut-wrenching song. You hear a black person sing one of those old black Negro spirituals. Nobody knows. I can't sing it like that, see, because I hadn't experienced what they be. When you've experienced hell, it comes out of the voice. I said, when you experience hell, it comes out of the voice. If you're one of those people that you got problem with black people or whatever, you better shut your mouth, because they're God's people. You better hear what I'm saying.
Wait a minute now.
You better shut your white mouth.
You can't hear if you make it noise. Shut up.
You better shut your white mouth. I'm not kidding you. I know some of you was raised in the deep south and you was raised by prejudiced people and bigoted people. You better get that out of your system. You better get it out of your system. It'll cause you to suffer right along with those masters. It'll cause you to suffer right along with them. These are God's people. And I know that there's wicked in white races and wicked in black races and all that. I'm not justifying none of that stuff. I'm just saying God knows what happened to the black race. He knows how they wound up over here. And God is going to reimburse the black people for all their trouble and all their labor. You watch what I tell you. Watch what I tell you.
He let you know who Israel is. They know who you are. And they know why you are here. Now, you're going to find that out next week. Thank you for your time.
Brothers, we have much more of a history than been presented to us.
Thank you.